Today we're going to talk about how to use Google Draw as part of a classroom. So first thing that we're going to do is make sure that we're signed into our Gmail or Google account, which I am already. And then I'm going to go to my Google Drive. And Google Drive should be something that you're already familiar with, accessing Google Docs, Google Slides, a whole lot of other things that are available on here. What's really great about Google Draw is it allows you the ability to do some really basic photo editing and resizing projects without having to get any sort of software. And it's something that, everything else that's available through the Google Drive is accessible and free. Yay! So once I'm on Google Drive, I'm going to select New. And this is just like any other new file or program that I'm going to be starting. So I come down to More, and you can see here it's Google Drawings. So I'm going to open up this page. And what this does is it brings up a blank template. Now this is something that looks similar to like a Photoshop or Illustrator type of background photo. It is a little bit different. You don't have as much advanced editing abilities on here, but this is a really great tool to use, like I said, to combine different images together, to resize images, even to create graphic and text flyers, worksheets, pamphlets, things like that. You can easily add text into your document by simply selecting a text box, placing it wherever you would like it to be, and then typing in whatever you're titling or whatever words you want to use in this. So for this one, I'm going to be making that worksheet for how to use Google Drawing. So I'm just going to place my title right there. Now this allows some basic editing that you would get in any other Word document or Google Doc kind of deal. So I can set up my alignment on the text. I can resize the text. I have my different fonts that are available, things like that. So how to use Google Drawing. Right, so that's just kind of your really basic text box. That's something that's pretty easy. Nothing super crazy about that. You also have the shapes. So shapes is located right here. You click on this. And what this does is it allows you to insert various icons and shapes into your drawing. So you could see here I got a smiley face. Now if I want to change my coloring on this, I do have that option as well. So I could come up here and let's say I want to make it this traditional kind of yellow face. This is my fill color. So anything that is within the line drawing located here is going to get filled in with whatever color I select. If I want it to be red, yellow, I'm going to go with green because why not? My line color now is going to be selected, and I can again change the colors to whatever I'd like. So let's make the line color purple, stick with the complementary colors. So this is how I would use shapes. Now once I have my shape in here and I have my image selected, I just drag by the corner to resize. So if I want to take up the whole page, I can do that. If I want to make it really small, I can do that as well. Okay, so these callouts are these shapes that are available. You can use them for several different things. Some of them are just kind of these more emoji style. Some of them are basic geometric shapes. So if you're trying to set up a worksheet, some of you math folks, this would maybe be beneficial to you. You can, set up your triangle drawing and then come back in with your text box and add in whatever information you needed to add in. So maybe these are measurements on here that you can place. So like, 3. And then this one, we can set up this box right here. Is X. And then make sure that you select text box. Once you click on here, this is a select tool. So this allows me to click on whatever shape or image is prevalent. So if I wanted to delete that, I could. But I'm going to click on text box, come in here, and then say 7. So this is how I could definitely create, some geometry worksheets. I have no idea if these numbers actually equal anything or if that works for anything, but now you know how to do it. So if I want to delete that again, I'm just using the arrow, which is the select tool, which this will select any image or any box that I have on my worksheet. So that's shapes. You can kind of look through them. There's different, arrows for English writers. You can do, this idea turns into this idea, or just as editing thing. There's call outs. These are really great if you're doing like illustration, digital illustration. If you're trying to do some animated or comic strips, things like that, you kind of have these built-in sort of speech bubbles already there that you can plug into whatever other JPEGs or images that you have in. And then there's all the scientific equations, or not scientific, mathematic. I guess it's scientific also. Same. So that is the basics on the shapes. You have line, which is just what it says it is, just a line tool. So I can draw straight lines connecting things. There is the arrow connector, which allows me, so you can see there, let me delete the rest of these. That I now have a line with an arrow at the end of it. There's elbow connect lines that I can connect with this. So if I have different ideas that I'm trying to connect, or if I'm trying to create like a mind map or a visual map, an idea map for my students, I can utilize images, pictures that I find, and then all these drawing tools. So let me put a picture in here for folks so we can kind of get a better idea. So the way that I do this, I know I did that real quick. Let me go back. You see this little icon right here. This is for image insertion. So I can do this several ways. I can either take a picture from my computer, buy a website, off my albums, off my Google Drive, or I can simply just search for Google. So if I want to if I'm going to make this image, I'm just going to search for something. So I'll say like CSUN, because why not? And I can come up with some basic images here. Now keep in mind, by doing this image search, you are looking for, this defaults into images that are okay to use for commercial reuse, which means that they're non-copyrighted images. If you are looking for something more specific than that, if you do need to use copyrighted imagery, then you need to do a regular Google search and upload it another way. But for this one, I'll just take the seal because that makes sense, right? And it's going to insert in here. So if I want to use like these lines to sort of create an idea map or a web idea, I can do that for my students. So I'm going to resize this picture. This is really large, and this is something that Google Drawing comes in really handy for, is because I often have my students do searches for images, and they need to come in with like 3 to 7 images sometimes. And what happens is they'll just print out 7 pieces of paper, as opposed if they have this at their, they have the ability to use Google Draw. However, they can find those 7 images, resize them, and sort of move them around the page to get them all to fit on one page. This is something that is extremely useful, and again, this is stuff that you can use in different editing software. That kind of software, though, is pretty expensive and more complex. And unless you're teaching a class on Photoshop or any sort of digital art class, it's probably a little more complicated than what you need to do. A program like this does pretty much everything else that you would need it to do. So once I have an image selected, you can see that I have a couple of different options up here. One of them is just crop, just that really basic, is there anything in this image that I want to take out, replace, expand, things like that. For this particular image, that's not necessary. You have this button right here. This is your reset image. So if you apply any filters, if you do any sort of cropping, if you do any sort of resizing that may warp or distort the image, resetting image will bring it back to start. Image options. This right here is where you have a little bit more ability to like mess with the color, filtrations, things like that. You can change the color of an image. For something like this that is just a two-tone sort of thing, you can, it's easier to apply some of these basic filter options. This is the kind of stuff, though, that I wouldn't really do in the classroom. There is better programs for this. So I'm just going to reset that adjustment. But if I did need to apply a transparency to this, let's say I wanted this to be kind of in the background and I want to move this box over the top of it so that we can still clearly see that that's kind of faded in the background. That's how I would do that. By adjusting the transparency of whatever image I have selected. So if I have it set all the way over to the left, that means it is a non-transparent image, and then the further to the right I get it, the more see-through it becomes. So I now have the ability to place things on top of this or to place things behind this image, and you'll still be able to see it. Brightness and contrast, again, is something that I wouldn't mess with in this particular format. You can, if you need to, just do some really minor adjustments, but it's not, it will work, but it's not super great. Yeah. So I have my first image right here. So, and let's see, what else? What does success look like, right? Because in theory, our education is bringing us to success. So let's find a good image of that. I like this one. We'll go with that. So you can see how large this file just came up, right? And this is a huge, huge file. So first thing I'm going to do with this before I even resize it is I'm going to crop this down, because I don't realistically need all of this background imagery on here. Okay, so once I have that done, I'm now going to resize by just grabbing that corner and bringing it down. Okay, there we go. And make sure my image is placed a little more towards the center of my cropped square. I hit return and that's gonna resize everything. And this is still a little bit too large in comparison to my CSUN seal. But I can bring it down here, resize. So I want to use my lines to sort of show how this works. So we'll start it out with an elbow connector. So we're going to connect this image to this one. Okay. Now it's not a direct path though for everybody. So we might want to add in some other images over here, or this is where I can take the opportunity to use text in this software. So we'll say like this is hard work, right? And then whatever else, like, you know, good grades, studying, whatever else we're saying, like takes you from CSUN to success. You can just add in that text there or add more imagery into it. Another great thing that you could do with your students is to allow them to establish like this worksheet on their own. So like I said, I do stuff with my students where I need them to come in and do bring in a couple of different images for whatever project it is that they're working on. With this particular type of worksheet, they're able to do that fairly easily. So I just had my students do a visual pun assignment. So what I'll do is I'll just show you how you would be able to complete this part of the assignment for me using Google Images. So this right here is a serial killer, right? Get it? Serial, being killed. So bring that up. So I have one image. Cool, that one's done. Now let me find another one that I like that looks good. Let's see. Here we go, mousetrap. Right, and again, this is just allowing me to really easily and simply not have to be switching back and forth between Photoshop or Illustrator or another outside photo editing sort of software program. I'm just able to do this directly on the computer in Google Drive. It's saving as we go. So if this is a shared document, my students are able to look at this together. I'm going to do a Google image search because, like I said before, sometimes the image search that you're doing within Google Drive isn't as good. But if I come up here, I go to visual puns and click on images. Okay, this one's one of my favorites because, you know, art, visual puns. It's funny. Negative space is an art term. So I'm going to right click on this, copy image location, come back into my Google Drawing, click on image, and then I'm going to paste that in there. It's going to pull up this image, hit select, and again, it's going to put it on this page for me. So I'm going to bring that one, drop it down there. And let's see. Keys to happiness. That one's cute, so we'll take that one too. So same thing, right click, copy image, location, come back in to my Google Drawing, paste a URL, Control V, keys to happiness, hit select. It's gonna pull this up, and this one is already sized pretty well for me. So I'm good. So that's typically how I use imagery or Google Drawing in my classroom is I just show my students how they can combine these 4 to 5 pictures that I need them or I'm asking them to bring in. They're now able to just print it on one sheet of paper as opposed to coming in with 4 different sheets printed out. Now with these ones here, if I want to replace images, I can simply select here. It'll replace it with something else. I can come in and do my recolor options. Now if all I need for them to do is just black and white images, just so that they can save the ink, because not all of them reset their stuff. You can easily select your image, go up to image options. It pulls up this little sidebar here, and then you just select the grayscale option down at the bottom. Very rarely do I ask my students to print in color. They do have a printer and a computer available to them in the classroom that they can search if they need to see the color, but for the most part, this is just a way for me to have them start thinking about what they want to create in a visual way. So that's it. I hope you guys now know and understand Google Drawing a little bit more.